Welcome back to Truth Talk. We have quite a few things kind of percolating in our heads and in our minds. I did a episode that night. I recorded it. I don't actually know when you'll hear it. However, what I'm still kind of percolating about is this whole idea that assassinating somebody is a viable response from a society to someone you disagree with. That's a bit beyond me. Now, someone may say, especially my Canadian listeners, there's the thing, Douglas. You're wrong. It was one troubled young person. And you know what I say to that? Balderdash. Scroll down through the TikToks. Scroll down through the news from MSNBC all the way through the left wing. Watch the glee, the joy, the repackaging of whose fault this was. I personally believe that our society is being stretched to its limitations. Now, I understand there's been a lot of condemnation around this on both sides. And to think that killing someone is a response that is okay, that's a heinous act. Not only is it the heinous act of the young man who did it, it is a heinous act on anyone in our world. Not country, not political spheres, our world that thinks that's okay. Now, one thing that I struggle with is why you can't discuss something. And what is it that becomes so contentious, so polarizing, that we can't have civil discussion and conflict resolution? A man assassinated on live television and social media, live, for ideas that he has that differs from a far left-wing culture. And granted, let me just go on record. Since Wednesday, I have seen a lot of things Charlie Kirk has said that I fundamentally disagree with. Okay? You're welcome to email me. I don't know what the podcast's email account is, but you're welcome to email me and ask me for direct quotes of what I disagree with. Here's the thing. Whether you agree or disagree with someone, assassinating them in front of their children, in front of their followers, in front of our world, that's not okay. Now, it brings me to the discussion of, are we able to even have conversation? And I notice a trend in the world I live in. Okay? The world I live in, for the record, is a ministerial world. The world I live in may not physically assassinate somebody. But if there is somebody who has divergent thoughts, ideas, outcomes, loyalties, convictions, and beliefs, they are assassinated. Their character's assassinated in real general and opaque things like, well, we're really worried about the direction they're going, and doesn't seem like they're very conservative or they're very, progressive, or whatever it is that we use to kind of neutralize or mitigate somebody. And it's given a lot of thought to who we allow in and around our leadership styles. Do we suffer divergent thoughts? Do we tolerate different opinions? Do we understand that there are different perspectives and egos that can actually play into our own role as decision makers? There's a horrifying danger of surrounding yourself with yes men. There is a terrifying outcome in surrounding yourself with an echo chamber that the only reverberating voices you hear are an echo of your own opinion and your own voice. What it does is it amplifies your thoughts and your outcomes and your concerns more and more, to the degree that you're unable to get varying opinions. Now, as a leader, I make decisions. I try not to make too many in a day. Okay, I'm not as limited as what Jeff Bezos is, who I think Jeff Bezos says that he tries to make his day around 3 good decisions every day. He's trying to decide for 3 things every day. He said, if I do the deciding for everything else under me, then what's the point in me being a high-paid executive? He said, I'm trying to make 3 good decisions a day. I can make 20 decisions in a day. I can do that. He said the only problem is the quality of those decisions become less and less the more I make them. Okay? So in decision making, you're not expecting someone to make your decisions for you as a leader. I'm expecting someone to inform my decisions. To inform my decisions, there should be somebody that plays a role of offering a different perspective. This brings me to one of my favorite authors here. And this is my autographed first edition copy of Doris Kearns Goodwin's book, A Team of Rivals, The Political Genius of Abraham Lincoln. And she signed this. I've met her several times and had the privilege of being around her. She is a brilliant, brilliant woman. Now, in this book, she writes mainly about 4 different characters that are kind of in the circle of Abraham Lincoln. She writes about William H. Seward, Salmon Chase, Edward M. Stanton, and Edward Bates. Now, these 4 men were all on Lincoln's cabinet, albeit they were all his adversaries. In fact, Edwin Stanton had actually ran against him for the presidency of the United States. And then Lincoln turns around and hires him in and says, I want you to be a part of my staff. Okay? Now, the brilliant part of A Team of Rivals is how Lincoln's genuine empathy is revealed in his decision-making and who he hires in as staff. And what's awesome about this is they begin as his enemies, but then they begin to understand him, okay? And he regularly sought to befriend these men, and his political adversaries actually turned his foes into his allies. This allowed him to calm tempers, diffuse conflicts, get honest counsel. Even in the middle of the Civil War's most heated debates, he had a way of hearing out his adversaries. We're not good at that. In fact, we take rejection of our ideas as rejection of ourselves. There's a ministry situation that I'm apprised of, and And it's fascinating to me how that they made a decision as a ministry, and anyone who disagrees with that decision is demonized. And the reason they're demonized is because they're viewed as a dissenter. I don't know why that would be a mark of fellowship break or a mark of disunity. For me, that would be one of my barometric indicators of whether or not the decision is being acclimated and people are climatizing the decision among the culture. Okay? So, for instance, when I'm getting ready here at Truth Church, and let's say I'm going to implement a policy or a procedure, we're not talking about changes in doctrine and all of that. Just I'm implementing a change. I'm first going to do some kind of research analysis. Who would be really for this? And then who would be against it or express reservations about it? They would be reticent to just say, I buy into this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give the idea out. I'm going to toss it out without saying that it's a procedure or policy that I am implementing because this is how I think it should go, or I think the pros and cons of it are. I throw it out namelessly. I throw it out without a lot of gravitas around it. And just, hey, if you heard that someone was tampering around with this policy implementation, what would be your thoughts, or what do you think they would be solving for, or what do you think they would be questioning or trying to find out? And people in that way are more they're more apt to say, oh, that's a terrible idea because it's going to do this or that. Now, it doesn't mean that I go and I whirl away and change what I'm going to do. Oftentimes, I make a small list of who was pro and who was con on it, and then do I ever win them over to the other side by implementing a strategy or a policy or procedure that they would feel uncomfortable with. So actually a great way to find a barometric indicator of whether or not your ideas are being, implemented correctly. So one of the remarkable resiliences of Abraham Lincoln, and when you read this book, A Team of Rivals, he loses his son Willie, who dies. He has a crushing weight of wartime leadership. His wife, just managing his wife is a full-time job, okay? If anybody thinks this man's marriage was good or this man's marriage was very good, it was not. But in this, under these immense pressures, Lincoln not only recognizes his rivals, but he harnesses the distinct strengths, the perspectives, even the egos of his counterparts and rivals to guide the nation through the crisis. He doesn't shut them out. He doesn't slam his fist as an authoritarian and say, see there, that's a dissenting voice, and you're not loyal, and you're not on the side of unity, and you're not on the side of the union. No, he wants to win the peace as much as the war. The world we live in is not interested in winning the peace. They just want to win the war. And that's why a cheap shot that was fired in Utah 2 or 3 days ago has rocked our world back on its haunches, because we're fighting the war, but nobody's winning, and we certainly won't win the peace. Show me the Chris Cuomo, who is a famous liberal. He worked for CNN for years and parted with CNN. I don't remember all the details around that. But anyhow, he this is Chris Cuomo in what in what he had to say.
For a lot of the positions, you know, I can't believe this happened. I can't believe he's gone. I don't even know what to do with it. That he was murdered at one of the events that he thought was part of the solution, and I agreed with him. I didn't agree with his politics for a lot of the positions, but so what? Killed for his ideas? For his feelings about trans or Trump or Israel? Was the shooter a lefty or crazy or both? Well, no. There is no advantage in this, and I know some want there to be. I know some want this to be proof of something that they think is helpful to their cause. But to me, all I see is a kid. And to me, for all Charlie achieved, personally and professionally, he was only 31 years old. He and his beautiful wife, they were just starting a family. They have 2 little babies. And that's all I think. That's all I see. Is that I can't believe he's gone for this. And yet, everything in my head tells my heart, wake up. Wake up. This is who we are. This is where we are. And go into this group tonight.
See, that right there will turn your blood into ice. This is who we are. This is where we are. Here is a guy. He recently, I don't know how recently, but he did an interview on David or Bet David podcast, and him and Charlie Kirk sat down and they reasoned with each other, completely disagreed with each other's ideas, right? But reasoning with each other was part of it. And so it's a beautiful thing to let us reason together. It's not just a beautiful thing, it's a godly thing. And so I'm always intrigued by leaders who you can't approach them. You can't reason with them. The Bible talks about unreasonable men. Deliver us from unreasonable men. The Bible also says that one of the disqualifying things of a pastor is that he would be implacable or unapproachable or unreasonable. Okay? God, if God is reasonable, Isaiah, in the beginning of Isaiah, he says, come, let us reason together. Though your sins be as scarlet, I will make them white as snow. Isaiah 1. A powerful idea that if God is reasonable, all unreasonableness in a situation has to be earmarked as ungodly in its whole. Now, Chris Cuomo said this. He's a very, very influential liberal in the political spectrum, but he's a very upfront guy in this, right? Bill Maher is absolutely liberal, right? I mean, he's a extremely influential guy. I think he started as a late night comedian, but he's more of a political pundit at this point. Anyhow, Bill Maher weighs in on it. He's aghast that this would be one of the outcomes of the guys. Now, what's interesting about what Chris Cuomo says is he says he was killed for what he believed was part of the solution, and I agree with him, right? Because open dialogue is and always will be part of the solution. So if you back up, you see these characters and leaders and leadership and the way that people goes about articulating their ideas. There's some that want to just shut the other side up. You know, it's kind of the Napoleonic complex here. If you disagree with my idea, then you reject me. Well, no, that's not true. You can reject my ideas, and that doesn't mean you're rejecting me. Okay? You have 4 kids. I have 4 kids, and if you have 4 kids in your house, you get your ideas rejected every day. But you don't feel rejected as a father, as a parent. Why? Because your kids have differing views. It's absolutely asinine to think that leaders and communicators and people who are in the public arena would not assume that people are going to reject their ideas. In fact, Charlie Kirk died under a tent that the banner across the top of it was "Prove Me Wrong." He's out there letting someone else talk, laying the microphone down, letting them go back and forth. Anyhow, look in your Bible. In 2 Samuel chapter 3, you'll find a similar story. And this is when David is trying to unify a divided nation between Judah and Israel. And so they're coming under one banner. And David finds this general who was like a 4-star general on Saul's army on the other side. In fact, Abner had been the architect of one of the sons of Saul's bid for the throne. So, I mean, obviously, this man is extremely agitated by David being on the throne. And what is fascinating to me is David brings him into his side, sets down, has dinner with him. And while they're dining and they're making a league together to come together, because David understands that you may not think I'm the legitimate king right now, but if you watch me rule with dignity, with grace, and maintain an honorable posture while under fire, you will eventually see the legitimacy of my kingdom. So it's a big deal. Abner comes in. They're like, oh, man, the kingdom's really coming together. This is a miracle. Joab comes in and sees this and freaks out. Joab's like, absolutely not. We are not going to be negotiating with the enemies. Okay? So you find this Lincoln's moral growth, David's moral growth in this. Lincoln shifts from prioritizing the Union's survival to recognizing the imperative of abolishing slavery. So he's growing as he goes, growing as he leads, adapting as he moves. And so he gives his rivals time to come along beside him, time to work with him. Well, the same thing David does. David's growing and realizing, oh man, I don't just want to win the throne. I actually want to win the peace and the nation. So he brings Abner in. Joab is furious. I mean, he is unbelievably angry. Okay? So, same thing. Lincoln grows in his estimation of what the kingdom is supposed to be. It's so fascinating because Lincoln sees his rivals become his allies, but he had to give them time and dialogue to get there. And so it underscores how Lincoln's greatness laid in his ability to listen, empathize, and unite people with differing ideas, qualities that are imperative to leaders and communicators today. Okay? Put up 2 Peter chapter 2 and verse 12 for me. Okay? The power of collaboration is strong in both David and Lincoln's leadership style. Everybody has starkly different views, okay? They have all but instead of surrounding himself and themselves with only the people who agree with them, these leaders foster open debate, managed opposing personalities, and got strength. Man, David saw Abner walk in and was like, oh, this is the moment. This is where the kingdom's going to, if he can bring something to the table, he's going to bring strength. He's going to bring his side. Instead of saying, well, absolutely, I don't want you. You mean you're on the opposing side? Silence them. That's what people do with friendships, leaderships, ministries, voices in their life. As soon as you disagree with me, character assassination. just silence them at no cost. Demonize the dissent. Okay? So you have all of these strengths and weaknesses. And David and Lincoln exemplify leaders who rose above pettiness, making room for both adversaries and dissent in their administrations to achieve a higher mission. Okay? What does 2 Peter 2 and 12 say? But these, as natural brute beasts, it's like they're made to be destroyed. They're not going to fix anything. Okay? They speak evil of things that they understand not, and shall utterly perish in their own corruption. So people who are brute, they have the animalistic instincts to just devour anything that is viewed as a threat to them. Part of the thing that is so powerful about human integrity and human capability is we have the ability and the power to turn threats into friendships. And all of us have been threatened by someone somewhere at some time. And yet we are able to sit down and say, help me understand. Later on, you become friends. Later on, you become allies in things. This is what we've got to get back to in our society. A team of rivals. Okay? Preston, put up the picture of the people that was in the cabinet with Lincoln. This picture is a profound picture, okay? All these guys, Seward, Chase, Bates, Stanton, they're all in that picture. And they're in there with Lincoln. Because like Lincoln's rivals, I have rivals. Like Lincoln's rivals, Abner came eventually to appreciate the inevitability and the legitimacy of David's reign and leadership. All these men in this picture you see right here, none of them, they didn't come to where they agreed completely with Lincoln, but they all finished out saying that man was the legitimate leader. So here's what I want to kind of bring about as a closing thing. If I was trying to push something that others viewed as illegitimate in some capacity or ill-defined, if I could press forward my idea to the degree that the opposers of my idea are won over to be supporters of my idea, wouldn't that be the greatest applause and confirmation of my idea? So let's say that I want to promote somebody, and people say, no way that you should make that person the leader of this team or group. But I'm determined, as a leader, I want person B to be the leader. Well, what if persons C, D, E, and F all say, absolutely not. This guy's a horrible choice. He's not going to be a good leader in that position. What should I do? Should I clear the deck? Should I character assassinate everybody at the table and say, oh, they dissented. They don't have unity? Or is the idea right on its own merits? Is the election or choice of person B, is that the person that I want to lead that team? If it is, then if I can press forward that in a measured way that qualifies that person through the process, and persons C, D, E, and F all come back to me and say, hey, they've really shocked me. I'm surprised at how good they're doing in that position of being over whatever it is, that event or that team. Had I tore off everybody's head, had I took away everybody's seat at the table because they disagreed with my choice, what does that really confirm who I chose to lead that team? Or if that person's rivals, through the process, through the positioning, through the implementation, saw it so well executed, so well communicated, and so well implemented, that they, in turn, come back and said, that was right. Isn't that the greatest applause of my idea? So I want to caution everybody who thinks that silencing the dissent is the win. In our culture, that's not true. In true, strong, efficacious leadership that's effective for the kingdom of God, that's not true. Jesus allowed dissenters around him. Paul allowed dissenters around him. David had dissenters around him. Abraham Lincoln had dissenters around him. Douglas Walker has dissenters around him. Let's engage in a well-articulated plea to those who disagree with us, to the point and outcome that we win at least their viewpoint and perspective at the table, if not their friendship and their allyship in the outcomes. I think we need to tone down the heat. We need to let people disagree with us. And we need to allow people to dissent. And sometimes people don't want to quit the country. Sometimes they just want their voice to be heard. And so if you have a situation in your life where someone is wanting to quit and move away from that point of view, allow them to voice their concerns. Allow them to voice their oppositions. Allow them to voice what they consider a danger or a pitfall. Let them become part of the process to walk through it and see if we can't win together. If Jesus would do it, if the Apostle Paul would do it, if King David would do it, I certainly want to be a man that is both reasonable and approachable. Let's tone down the heat a little bit. Let's let a little bit of the steam out of the situation. And let's let people reason with us and see if we can't create a better world and a better relationship.